good afternoon. It is Shirley with Spirit of Matter. And as usual, I know the topic for today is not for astrologers only, but I do begin with looking at the equivalent to the point from which I gaze at a topic, and an astrological chart is a fine tool to kind of capture the moment. So we have a midheaven that's ruled by a retrograde Saturn in the 12th. Very interesting. Not something I would pre-elect, okay? This 12th house is quite interesting. And we have ascendant that is ruled by Mars in the 6th house. Mars in 25 degrees, applying to oppose Neptune. So it is, of course, Mars hour. It is written here Sunday, but oh my gosh, the cat sleeps so peacefully and he's so cute, but I can't show you. Sunday turns into Jupiter night. Okay, Sunday turns into a Jupiter night. And right now we are in a Jupiter night with Jupiter in the 2nd house of skills, and is in a bit of a T-square between the lot of fortune and the retrograde Venus that rules this Jupiter. So for those of you who are not here for the astrology at all, it's basically not the best election. It's not the best timing to look at something. And yet, the way in which I view the situation of hacking has to do with Mars. I have Mercury in a Mars-ruled sign. Mercury rules communication, technology, and the trading and that kind of exchange skills. Mars is ruling war, assertion, weapon, also penis, garlic that you see here on the clickbait, and penetration. And the thought that I've had in this Jupiter night, Mars hour, Jupiter, by the way, rules semen, but also philosophy, to some degree, philosophy, worldview, even religion. So the thought that I was having as I was watching some videos about hacking, ethical hacking, gray hats, white hats, whatnot, and I'm completely new to this subject, was that a penetration is a penetration is a penetration. And on a more holistic level, you know me, I like to look at things more holistically. I like to look at energy, not just it is Spirit of Matter channel for a reason. So the thing is, the cat just squinted at me. That was so cute. And kept going back to sleep, wondering, why am I waking it up? Don't leave. Anyway, when you think about penetrating a system or penetration, I had a lot of Mars thoughts. Now I'm in a Mercury perfected year, but it's in a Mars sign, and this means that these parts of my chart are more activated, and we are heading to an eclipse on my Mercury, which also includes Aries. And we talked about Aries in other astrological videos as poisoning, directed poisoning that masquerades as a virus, a variant, and so on and so forth. But Aries is also a Trojan horse, okay? And therefore it is also hacking. It's put in a Trojan horse, somebody enters the party under the disguise of a legitimate person, and then it unmasks and the war of Troy begins. Everybody is mad at everybody and nobody knows who started this and why. But the enlightenment card of this chaotic situation is basically for us to remove our prejudice and remove the previous ways we thought about things, so that we can advance ourselves as humanity. Okay, basically Aries is the person that was not invited to the party because they did not have the right manners. They were not playing pretense. They were not doing the Venus thing of connecting, people pleasing, being a diplomat. And so they were just outcasted, and they decided to avenge this by using the card of enlightenment that is chaos, or the Trojan horse. And this is very computer like, right? And what prompted my kind of looking into hacking was basically a Twitter post that I saw of a fellow astrologer, and they were saying, if it is so easy to hack into systems in this age, why don't people hack into system and change the debt rates so that people for housing, so that people are registered as no longer in debt? And that's a great Trojan horse to set the world into alignment. I had another idea actually that has to do more with the medical system, and I will tell you what it is. But I will give you a disclaimer that I want you to listen to me until the end of this video before you start to act out on things, because there is just something that I figured right now that I'm willing to consider and willing to understand. And the thing is, I'll tell you what the idea was. The idea was that most healthcare systems have classified information where, let's say, you go to a psychiatrist, you go to a psychologist, or you go to your family doctor, and what is written in the computer is not necessarily visible to you, and what they write for themselves is not visible. And so one of my ideas was basically to literally do mass exposures of these clinical records. And those mass understanding that this mass exposure would not put at risk the people, but actually show how every person is being described in very pathological ways when they meet a healthcare personnel. It's basically expose the way that we, the people, are being talked at behind our back. I guess that's very Trojan horse-like. And that kind of would trigger and prompt the conversation, both about the boundary breach, but especially of what is actually being exposed here. And so I can connect this to a personal trauma. When I was a teenager, then I wrote something that was a story, and then one of my parents saw this, and it was looking between a story and the diary, and they were very, very angered to read what is in there. So they breached the boundary, but they were also feeling angered by what they read there, and were not really addressing the issue that today I don't remember what it was. But following that, I became a writer. Okay, because I understood I cannot write to my dear diary and I cannot hide my creation, and it was a very painful experience, but following that I became a writer. And there is a saying in writings that says all writings are meant to be read. And along with the years, this is a part of what shaped me into the whistleblower that I am. Okay? And you can see I'm pretty much an open book whenever I talk, and then do radical acceptance and look at things and address things and so on and so forth. But the thing is, and this is why I said listen until the end. As I was looking at these penetration tactics, and especially on how to masquerade yourself, which is never 100%, basically you put a couple of proxy addresses, and one is in, let's say, Thailand, one is in Singapore, one is in Switzerland, and whoever is the victim, okay, of this attack, I don't like this word at all, is the recipient. I like it more, because those are, if you use it to victimize people, you are very, well, I don't judge you, but I think, I wish for you that you will do something better with your time, you know. But mostly what we're thinking of is organizations that have power to oppress people, and we want to intervene in this oppression. so that they basically won't be able to oppress people. This is the point of hacking ethically and black hat. So when you think about the goal, yes, the goal is good. And it's not about does the goal justify the means, because it does. Okay? In those cases where I would look at hacking, it does. Okay? It justifies the mean that people will not be homeless. It justifies the mean that people will not have cities destroyed for no reason and some houses stay put. It does it is justifying the means where people will understand what is being spoken about them by their confidant healthcare personnel that they come to after their wife left them, after they have a conflict with the child, after they got fired from work, after they got an ailment and they were sent in for a check to make sure maybe it's mental, and they pay the best money for the healthcare system. So of course they think they can trust a well-educated person, and sometimes that person in themselves is not the problem, it's even deeper. So of course the goal justifies the mean. Here's no problem. But then there is one more thing, and the act of penetrating data is the Mercury Mars. Okay, yes, it's more other things. For example, Mars is about to oppose Neptune. Neptune dissolves boundaries. Mars right now is in Virgo, which is another Mercury Mars. Okay, there's Mercury in Scorpio or in Aries, which is the Mercury Mars. Okay, because Aries and Scorpio are ruled by Mars. You want to think Mars, you want to think penis and penetration. Okay, weapon. And there is Gemini and Virgo. So Mars in Gemini is also war, data war, conflicts, okay, also among media. And Mercury Virgo is also conflict around the details of something. And it's Mars in Mercury Sun. So we got the Mars-Mercury thingy going on. Where these both energies together, these both archetypes, energies, whatever you want, juxtaposition of two functions that keep rolling and integrating each other into their behavior symbiotically in various ways. And so we are thinking of penetrating data. Neptune gives that fog, that missing. It can both mean that if you, let's say, try to hack somebody right now, it leaks. Okay, leaking information, but it also means that people attempt to do spywares. Okay, if this is the Neptune, so spywares is very much those trying to masquerade themselves and to penetrate the system, but it is the nature of Neptune where it is you surrender. Maybe you will be exposed, maybe you will not be exposed. It's of a leakage nature, and it's where boundaries are dissolved. So you want this not in your bed, but because it's not stretching the boundaries in a SSC way, okay, when you talk about king. It is genuinely dissolution of the boundaries, okay? You don't want to, in general, when you think about electing good times for intimacy, for sex, for good sex, you don't want Mars in hard aspects with Neptune. Okay, because it dissolves the boundaries. It means that maybe somebody tries to assert the boundary and the boundary is not being understood correctly. And people breach the boundary even without knowing, and this is very dangerous, very traumatic. So we don't want that. But for hacking right now is actually a good time to think, to learn, to understand, and also holistically think about hacking. And hacking is penetration. Penetration is energy. One of the things, as Me Too veteran, but also as a person who has had astral sexual encounters that I did enjoy, I can tell to you, one of the things that make penetration enjoyable is that it is mutual. Okay, even in kinky settings, even if people don't have penetration, or the penetration happens on energy level, on psychological level, and it is always mutual. You see the people that get along together, even in control, like kinky relations, then you see that they are getting at each other's psyche, they're penetrating each other. You cannot penetrate without being penetrated. Okay? I'm not even talking about power. Of course, power is a very intricate topic, and and if you cannot penetrate without being penetrated, then immersion follows, and of course, power becomes very intricate. We get this with people who were offenders, but they feel the victim, and they genuinely feel the victim. It's not a show that they put on. They genuinely experience themselves as the victim, or the false sense of empowerment that people can experience in certain situations, even of abuse. Okay, they feel like they are powerful, that they are given attention or whatever, or that they penetrate the psyche of someone that can give a certain sense of empowerment by doing so. But this is for erotics. Now, when you penetrate a system, if you understand, let's stay a bit in the erotics. If you understand that, you cannot be penetrated without, you cannot penetrate without being penetrated. Okay? If you understand this, then you understand that by penetrating, you are consenting to be penetrated. It happens by energy. Okay, your energy, you penetrate somebody's energy field, especially willingly, consensually, but also if not, then basically you immediately are being felt. The inside of you is being felt, and maybe the person does not know to even tell what it is. They may feel feelings that they don't usually feel, that they may think things, they may identify certain temperatures, certain textures, and this is something that is a part of intimacy when it's truly practiced, and it can be more conscious, less conscious. The more people are embodied, the more they are conscious of this, and of course, the more it happens willingly, consensually. You understand that you're having an intercourse, simply put. Okay, Mars, you say, it rules attack, it rules penetration, it rules the penis, it rules weapons, it rules penetration. What is penetration? Is entering. And how does it happen? Tantrically. And this is a teaching from my Mars here, and you will see how that translates to data. How do you know if you are wanted? Okay, you may be feeling hard on, but let's say you have the penis person. There is a certain vacuum that is being created that invites you in energetically. You're being pulled towards. That's why when they give tips to cisgender women how to attract cisgender men or penis people, how to attract penis people, then they say you want to call them in, you want to create a certain gap, you want to create a certain hollow that invites them in, that lures the other person in, not by means of cheap seduction, but by means of communication. There's energy. Okay, you create a little vacuum, then somebody's being drawn in. Then you can see if you still like it, and you are, it's a process. And then sometimes you don't like it. Sometimes suddenly you have a fear. Then they don't have a hard on. It really is how it works. We communicate, and so every penetration, every use of Mars is an invitation to a discourse. It's an invitation to an intercourse, simply put. And when we talk about energy, do we like the energy? Do we like what we're creating together? Are we nourishing for each other? Are we creating something beautiful together? And so as I was thinking about this and I was watching, hacking videos, I was like, oh my God, this is Mars. When we penetrate a system, ethically or not, we are having an energy intercourse. It doesn't matter if we have a penis or not. We are using the penile energy, literally, the penile energy in action. Okay? And so now it brings another facet into the equation, because whenever we use this penile energy and penetrate a certain system, we're basically having an energy intercourse, okay? That we are affecting and being affected. People look at, there is a saying of looking into the abyss is becoming the abyss and something like this. Yeah, okay, you can address this by what people call shadow work. And I don't think it is Jung. Jung was sleeping with patients, and the ideas of the patients came out of the mouth. And I'm not saying that with blaming, because it's intercourse, it's energy intercourse. Okay, so he could literally think, oh, I thought about this, and it was somebody else's idea. So I'm not blaming Jung for that, but I am, pointing out that a lot of what we ascribe to Jung is actually Sabine Spielerein, especially the notion of countertransference in psychology, which is a horrid notion, by the way, but it's her idea. It's a horrid idea, but I'm not going to get into that. Transference is important to understand, but there's no such thing as countertransference, and even if you can never know who was doing the countertransference. For the nature that I mentioned. And when you penetrate the system, you're basically on an energy level exposing yourself to that which you penetrate. It's not only that if they can read energy, they can read it. They will not know what is your name. Some of them will go as much as to diagnose the specificity of the energies involved. Okay. And I'm a great advocate for non-specific energy protection and return to sender, so that we do return it to the original sender, but we don't have to know who it is. Okay, and this is setting up a certain algorithm that is keeping the peace, where we're not attacking people unnecessarily or wasting our energy, basically. But this put a dilemma, because it's basically meaning that as you are using that penile energy to penetrate that which you basically want to denucleify. Simply put, now you are contacting with this energy. You are intercoursing with this energy. And it's just something to keep in mind, because eventually we want intercourse to be willingly consensual, okay? The penile energy is meant to work willingly consensually. It's for people have a discussion, a willing discussion, have a willing intercourse, and transform by the merit of agreeing to be transformed and to transform within the situation. This is what a good conversation consists of, okay? We can be looking at things or challenging our point of view, so to speak, so that we can grow, so that we can develop. And there can be a bit friction around this, but what happens when we want to change the world and the penetration is a penetration. So this means that we use not the energy that we desire to have, just the energy of will and consent, what we want to have, where the good sex actually is, but other energies, and we use these energies basically to safeguard will and consent. So this is like, it's operating like a Trojan horse. And the reason I'm saying this is because we're going to have, in October, we're going to have an eclipse. And eclipses are fated events. This thing is happening. You're meant to have this change in your life, okay? For me, it happens on my Mercury ruling the 4th and the 7th house. And it's not a wonder that I saw an astrology... I think they have Mars in Virgo. Natally. And I have Mars, and I have Mercury in Aries, which is Mercury and Mars the other way. But the thing is that they were talking about housing, so erasing the debt for housing. And my reply was, we should do it. It is our responsibility to do it, and nullify the values for debt for a household, so people will not be thrown out of their homes. um, or at least as an act of, discourse. And indeed, this Aries thingy, that Trojan horse energy, is sitting pretty next to my Mercury, right next to my Mercury, and with Rahu, which is a point where it's basically the point where the eclipse hits. Okay, not the moon and the sun itself, but I'm not going to get into this, and I will tell you honestly, I need to revise it myself as to how it is calculated, because I go into the application. Astrology I learned by application, not by theory. There are other fields of study that I learned by theory, like philosophy of science and philosophy of medicine. I went from the theory to the application, and it was very good. But astrology I'm learning the other way around, in an emerging way. So I'm learning it by applying. So I don't remember exactly the structure of how this Rahu thing worked, but it's called the head of the dragon, where you always hunger for something, for change, for new, to eat it. But it's kind of like your hunger to eat it. And Aries Rahu, and with this Mercury, is basically this Trojan horse that manifests in many ways. So I'm going to have very fated events there. Already began to have, and I was thinking of Aries, which is, it takes 500 years. So when you have, which is another video that I'm going to do, which is once in 500 years of a chance, and I have her conjunct in my Mercury, so there's something around communication, skill of communication, and this to do with housing, this to do with partnership, but it may not be just one-on-one, maybe something political. That is a once in 500. Okay, so I'm a part of this once in 500 times, and once in 500 years times, and I don't know exactly the last. Previously 500, we had Leonardo da Vinci, we had the Renaissance, so that was the era, and now my Mercury is sitting pretty there. I don't know yet what it is meant to do, but it will become quite obvious as the time goes by. And so it's very highlighted time for me to look at Aries and to understand that my Mercury is working in a certain way. And so there is a great temptation, there's a great calling even, to feel that maybe I should be like this Trojan horse, where I put something somewhere and that creates a bit of a Trojan war, so that people can, especially when it comes to, let's say, mental health, the way doctors speak about patients, the tagging, this is more for the people, in favor of the people, so that they will stop vilifying other people, or something like this. But hacking is one of the options. And then, I don't know, but it's also understanding that it is Mars ruled Aries. So there is the desire to do innovation. So assertion through innovation, but Aries is a Trojan horse. So maybe I'm supposed to write something, okay? Maybe I'm supposed to write something. But then also there is the understanding that there is a fumbling with energies here that needs to be alchemized in the good way. And I have no idea, okay? I have no idea how to do this thing correctly. And so, yes, this name of this video was a penetration is a penetration. And so hacking, whether ethically or not, has to do with this Mars quality and the understanding that we are working with energy. And so perhaps, the way to work with Mars correctly is to create something that we do want, and to sever ties with the unjust by investing into that which we do want, But Mars is also capable of kind of like to outdo what is no longer serving, to sever ties with what is no longer serving. And into this, I have Mercury. Right now, Mars is in Mercury sign. So there's the questions of acts of um, intelligence and stuff like that. And then there is Aries, and Aries is a Trojan horse, okay? It's basically meant to call, it's the card of enlightenment of Aries is discord. So I'm having a conflict here because a penetration is a penetration is a penetration. So you agree to transform and being transformed, and the card that is being played is the card of discourse. Okay, so the card that the universe is throwing at us is the card of discord. So it's not an easy tackling, and so whether a story or an actual Trojan horse or a Trojan horse that is a story. It's like I'm having this think tank group with myself on this. And because Aries is an outer planet, so I'm not the only one having something at the end of the cardinal axis, okay? If you have ascendant, sun or moon, or any planets at 20 to 29 degrees of Aries, Capricorn, Libra, and Cancer, this is a manifesting time for you, okay? Aries is now maybe squaring your ascendant. And you think about this, if you know a bit astrology, you think about Pluto in this aspect, these hard aspects, and people say, it is a transpersonal planet, it moves so slow, it moves so this, it moves so... Maybe, but when it is making a hard aspect to a personal planet, Venus, Mercury, Mars, Sun, Moon, and to some extent even Jupiter and Saturn, you know that it matters. It may be a long-term change, but you understand that there is a theme here, okay? There is a theme of something that's happening here. And you can't ignore it, and this something is beyond the personal. You are a part of many, many, many people, an era or a generation that is dealing with those things, and you are one of the voices of this generation. So there are all these things happening, and there's a lot of unpredictability because the war of Troy is basically about everybody is a big chaos, everybody fighting everybody, so that everybody will shed the patterns that caused them in the beginning to not invite Aries to the party. Okay? Why did we exclude Aries? And what can we do about this? And everybody fighting. And the discovery of Aries, okay, she's a bit bigger than Pluto, and she's far away from Pluto. Up until then, we called Pluto a planet, and then we decided for some godforsaken reason that Pluto is not a planet because Aries cannot be a planet, and we didn't understand why Aries cannot be a planet. For example, I see right now the discourse of borderline narcissism and CPTSD, okay, it's identities or personality disorder. So there's both the understanding that it's not okay to tag somebody's personality and a person is not a disease. And when you have situations where somebody stalks somebody and they are relentless, okay, both people need peace of mind, both people need, boundaries do need to be set here. And then we want to be compassionate because also sometimes the person that is being stalked, they went to some dating course, and they were taught how to create a trauma bond, but they didn't. It's not what they told them. They were going to meet a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and And they were told that this is how they will get a long-lasting relationship they are happy in. And they tried all these communication techniques, and those cause what is called trauma bonding. And now they got the borderline person to deal with, or they got the, it's kind of like you behave like the narcissistic person, then you harvest a borderline. And like, when I started to learn about gaslighting and stuff like that, I've literally seen this in my own eyes. And of course, you cannot blame the person, because if they were in threat, somebody was threatening them, you know, there you don't want to victim blame, right? It's not, but you also understand that there is some intricacy here that needs to be unraveled and sorted out. And so the solution is not to demote and say, okay, there is no narcissist, there is no borderline, but at the same time, to not say it is a narcissist, it is a borderline, because we both don't want to tag people, and we want to be compassionate where people say, oh, my narcissistic boyfriend, and blah, 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 and understand that the patterns they do correlate with a certain type of behavior, and that there is trauma at the source of the energy of the matter. So we are learning to not demote people, and we are learning to refute our paradigms while maintaining that we do want to be treated, with respect. So Aries is going to show us where we are hypocrite. If you think about the Me Too era, okay, so we began to believe people who spoke about being a victim. And then there was the case of Johnny Depp that literally found a record that Amber Heard told him, nobody will believe you. So they don't know its energy. Nobody will believe you. And that is how Johnny Depp became to receive validation from other victims that were Me Too veterans, okay, that were women. And that was needed. And so it's like we don't even understand how this healing came about. But nobody would give a damn about Johnny Depp before the Me Too. Okay, nobody would care that Johnny Depp went to abuse. They were like, you're not man enough. What are you, a whiny baby? And after Me Too, it kind of seemed like, nobody will believe a man when he said I was falsely accused of this. They actually threatened me. I was the victim in the situation, and lo and behold, the truth came out. Okay, so Aries takes us through seeing all the situations that we can think of and somehow prevail through maintaining authenticity, but also discovering our authenticity at the same time. And this is why when I get into this topic of ideological hacking, okay, and ideological is really in favor of humanity, like not having people homeless, like people being exposed to what is being said about them when they go to their doctor, even their family doctor, or when they need to have a checkup. For example, if you are homeless and cops finds you, and you don't have a place, sometimes they have to take you to a local hospital, emergency psychiatry, to have a checkup that you are not crazy. Okay. So you understand the way these systems work. The cops have to do this, and now you understand how a person can easily have many weird things written about them that do not necessarily correlate with what they're dealing with. They need a home, not a pill, and they need a good environment to live in, not a diagnosis. And they need, when they date someone, that they will communicate in a way that is communicable, not gaslighting and trauma bonding. But also we don't want to blame people for not knowing how to behave properly, because all of us don't know. All of us, there are things that we are not aware of, that we could do differently, that we need to grow, and we need to be exposed to new things. So that's the process of Aries. And when we tackle the issue of ideological hacking, it's both understanding that a penetration is a penetration is a penetration, and you're basically having an energy encounter or intercourse, so to speak, even if it's not on the sexual level, Um, it can be on a sapiosexual level, and and then you're basically having an energy, intimate encounter with various energies and beings that are right now doing things that oppress humanity. So you interact, okay, and you want to dissolve these energies, but you also cannot force people to enlighten, although Aries is the card of discord that kind of forces people to enlighten through this chaos. And so there is no simple solution to this Zen-like state. I cannot tell you how. If somebody would tell me there would be a sudden shift where people will start believing victims of sexual abuse, I would say, hurrah, finally. And somebody would tell me, and then there will be a man who will talk about being falsely accused, and then only then he can be believed, only after we believe women. And I would say, I don't know how that's one thing stemmed from another, but it makes perfect sense when you think about this. If we would try to believe people who are falsely accused before we believe people who are victims, then they would never believe victims, right? But if we suddenly believe victims, then it's like the energy, on an energy level, we've released so much that now those people who are falsely accused can also release. I'm not saying everybody, I'm not here to erase the experiences of people who did not have the truth exposed. But it's kind of like we released energy from the matter, okay? We released the energy, release those stuff, for people that were generations, even 500 years, not being believed. Something happened to them, they were not being believed. Now, only 2-3 years after that, suddenly we had the case where a man was falsely accused and we could believe him. We can see he's falsely accused. We can see, he was going through exactly what those women were going through by a woman. Yes, this happens also by women. And it's almost natural to give them the validation, because when we have been believed, when we have released this energy, now we are tending to more things in society, and it's not on an energy level. It's kind of like there's a bump in the road, and you cross that bump, and you basically are free to discuss other issues. You are free to tackle other intricacies. You are free to see the whole picture without demoting. Okay, this is the challenge that Aries presents us. Can we think of Aries as a planet without demoting Pluto? Can we liberate ourselves without demoting others? Or how do we liberate ourselves? On the basis of us being seen rather than other people being demoted. Okay? So it's also a technological question. It's also a diplomatic question. It's also a security and military question. It's a big revolution. It's a 500 years. It's a once in 500 years. Okay, it's a once in 500 years. And the Aries has its mysterious ways where everything makes perfect sense, yet it doesn't seem logical. It's counterintuitive. And this is why it brings such breakthroughs in science. In technology, in science, in the enlightenment of humanity, of all these things that Aries brings about, because we look at the world from various, very intricate, very deep, very to the point of view. Aries has been for a while in Aries, like I looked at the 2 world wars. I looked at the Second World War. Aries was in 3 degrees Aries in 39. So Sedna was in Aries, by the way. Right now Sedna is in Gemini. So that is different. Uranus is exactly where it was in 1939. That's why I looked. So we have been having Aries in Aries for various generations, not 7 generations, but yes, 7. Yeah, not 7 generations, but very close. To 3, 4 generations. Some of us are 5 generations, and some of us 6 to the 7th. When Pluto will be in Aquarius, the 7th generation will be born, since Aries was in Aries. And it almost doesn't make sense, but this is true. And that is a very meaningful place. So it will take Aries 500 more years to be where it's at right now, even over 500. And we need to think in cycles of 500 years. And this is why the energy of Aries is so intricate, because it's a pivotal change that with the eclipse on Aries, it gets us to those 500 years. We did not have previous eclipses with Aries. So I'm not sure I can see this, but was the last time we had eclipse with Rahu in Aries was 18 years ago. With Rahu in Aries. Let's do a bit eclipses, because why not? I want to look, these are to the 28th, but I'm wanting to let's see. Okay, it will make it very difficult for me to go like this, but there is merit to it, because in 2017 was the Leo Aqua, and 2016 I think was already, this is the Leo Aqua, Pisces, Capricorn, Sag, Gemini, and then okay, 2016 we had the Libra Aries axis, so this is one in Libra in 2016. And then we had 2000 was the axis with Rahu in Libra, so Pluto was in Aries. And this is Aries 4 degrees, 3 degrees, 4 degrees, 3 degrees, but I'm looking, where was Rahu here with the Pisces one? Rahu was on 10 degrees Aries. I want to do asteroids. And Aries. Aries was already in 22 degrees Aries, and the eclipse here was not on Aries. But we understand that Aries has been in, it's not impossible that there was eclipses on Aries in 2015, 2016, as well as 2007. So with 2007, with 2006, 2005, 2007 it was Pisces, but I want to check 2007 too. And let's see, 2007 we had one with Pisces. I want to see where the nodes were. No, here is already in Pisces, but because sometimes the nodes are not where the eclipse is, but this is not the case. Maybe this one thing with Virgo in 2000, this already 2008. No, but the nodes are already to the Leo. So let's go a bit earlier, and let's check This eclipse chart is in 8 Aries. And I want to see where was Aries. So asteroids and degrees. This was 29th of March. Aries was in 20 degrees. So we had some 10 degrees before. Yeah, it's not the same phase. We're gonna look at them one by one because this is interesting here. It was one eclipse here. Probably the previous ones were, let's look at this 24 degrees, 2006, 15 March. And look at, okay, Rahu was in 5 degrees Aries. Aries was, we said, in 20 degrees, so no. But I was a potent one. And 2005. Okay, we had one at 19 degrees Aries. This is 2005, 8 April 2005. And asteroids. Aries 20 degrees, 1 degree from Aries. And Rahu 23 degrees. But is it Taurus? Let me see. No, it is Aries. So, yes, 8 April 2005, we had an eclipse with Rahu in Aries. We also recently had one, okay, with the eclipse on Aries itself in April. But this one, and it was square in Saturn. So let's look at April. I don't know if we will find all the news that we need to see because there is problem with locating the news, okay? So April 8, 2005, world news. World War, no. Current events portal. The funeral of Pope John Paul II took place. Okay, so something that had to do, it was square in Saturn. Saturn is also to do with patriarch. So Eric Rudolph agrees to plead guilty for 4 bombings, including the 1996 Continental Olympic Park bombing, in exchange for 4 life sentences. Okay. This was a trial. Islamic insurgents killed 14 people in an attack outside Algiers, trapping the victims at a fake roadblock, then killing them and burning their vehicles. Suicide bomber kills foreign tourists in Cairo and injures further score bystanders. So I can't tell you that this is exactly this one is interesting. Israeli Defense Minister Shal Mufaz announces private homes in Gaza Strip settlements will not be demolished after the disengagement plan. Religious structures such as synagogues, mikveh, and baths, cemeteries will be dismantled and transferred inside the Green Line. This was the Itnatkut. Yeah, it was where basically 1.5 million Israelis that were living in the settlements bordering Gaza were evacuated into inland. We're still dealing with the aftermath of that. That just became like a terror city underneath the ground. That's what was made out of it, which Israel is, of course, very much involved in not preventing, not only by evacuation but also by the way you need to invest into the new land, and you need to make sure that the right things happen there. But this was very interesting. I don't necessarily say this was Aries, the asteroid, but it's very interesting. The scientists at Manchester Christie Hospital claim cure for cancer could be available in 5 years. It's not the time to tell you what I know about. I told you in other videos, okay? You know what I think already. Um, Interview with Financial Times, Hezbollah leader announces that the group will be willing to discuss potential disarmament after Israel withdraws from the Sheba farms. Lebanon and Syria maintain that the Sheba farms are Lebanese territory, while the rest of the world community insists that the farms are part of Golan Heights, thus a part of the Syrian territory occupied by Israel. So, plenty of stuff to do with Israel elections beginning Djibouti, including President Israel Omar Goleh, is the only candidate for the presidential election in Djibouti. Yeah. So you know what? Now this makes me think, because we think about Aries Mars as something algorithmic. Trojan horse is basically algorithm breach. And if you talk about democracy, so the algorithmic breach in democracy, which also happened in 1929, and perhaps with accompanying by the ingress of Aries to Aries. I'm not sure when she ingressed. I'm not sure if I want to check it now. But we do have kind of a breach in the algorithm. So this was on the exact day of April 8, 2005. So we saw a lot of bombings. Nothing that you would give a stamp directly of 500 years. Okay. Maybe it has more like a butterfly effect, and it's like a tiny event that brings a lot of chaos. There was a funeral of the Pope, but it's kind of like it also squared Saturn. I don't really see anything here, to be honest. Okay. That is the Djibouti. Unless the Djibouti is kind of like the Franz Ferdinand of the 22nd century, then country in the Horn of Africa bordered by Somalia, Ethiopia to the southeast, Eritrea to the north, the Red Sea and the Gulf of Eden to the east. They have access to the Red Sea. And okay. Like, I would really need to look more into this. So, thank you. It has been inhabited since the Neolithic era. Family's original Ur-Heimat, original homeland. Okay. Afroasiatic developed in situ in Horn. I don't know. Look, it's too difficult for me to say, but I actually don't see anything particular in this. Of course, eclipses, we have things not directly on the day. So I would have to look 3 months forward, 3 months back. Maybe we can get at the ingress of Aries. Let's try to get at the ingress of Aries. So if I have aspects and transits, and I have ephemeris tables, and let's look just, oh, this not this through this one, is actually ephemeris search engine, and we go to let's go to 1929. And we have January 1st, just for the sake of it, and we have asteroids. Aries is in 0. Oh my god, I cannot make this up. 1929, Aries ingresses into Aries. This is, this is a 500 years thingy. I don't know what to say, and I don't know if we can get the ingress itself. What was happening in the ingress itself? I would look at, it would be 1938 and something, because this is already the 1st of January, and she's already 34 minutes into Aries. But you can get what happened, what happened in the world regarding to the nation states, individual rights, how we view war. And look, Uranus was 3 degrees there. It was probably ingressing upon a conjunction with Uranus. And I'm sorry if you are not an astrologer, you don't understand anything what I'm talking about right here, please ask me. I will do more videos about this. I'm just having a moment here because I'm studying life with you. It ingressed upon the conjunction. It's no wonder, when I was Meet the Veteran, Aries and Uranus were conjuncting around my Mercury. And I was having things that I saw from the two wars. So I didn't know to explain this. Is because I was studying politics and governance and English linguistics. One of the courses we were studying, of course, the political history of the 20th century, age of ideology, and it was another point that triggered these events, these events from the ingress, these Uranus conjunctions. But now this Uranus Aries happened on Aries being, I don't remember if it was 19 degrees or 20 degrees. Oh yes, it was probably 20, 21 or even 22 degrees when I wrote Sugar-Free Lemonade. Then yes, it was a very big deal. It was a very big deal. And it was a very big deal, and I don't know what to say about this. We're not gonna have a Uranus conjunct Aries anytime soon. But that was indeed, I was talking about science and scientific progress, and we go like the salami method for research. If you're a researcher, you know what I'm talking about. You cut one research into slices because you need to publish, and I said we must make more progress scientifically, and the way that the way our sexuality is connected to that, how it affects everything. Oh, so I was one of these voices, and you know the way these things work, that the voices usually feeling that they are empty in an echo. They're in an echoing room, and they don't hear the echoes because it's one person here, one person there, and we don't even know about each other. But that was, yes, that was the situation. And you know, with Aries, Uranus, the ingress, I think we already had that famous political relationship between Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin. I think it was already in place. There was this fierce dynamic where eventually Hitler betrayed, but he was on the verge of being betrayed, so it was not a very reliable, you know, a political situation. And yeah, and now we are on the verge of Aries in the coming years ingressing into Taurus. Uranus right now is where it was in 1939. Sedna is in Gemini. Sedna was in 15 degrees Aries with Vesta. Sedna, if you think about this, the nation state betraying each individuals betraying each other, it's also a story of how certain individuals did make up for society at the time, more so than perhaps at other times. You know, it was not Pluto in Aquarius, it was Pluto in Cancer. So the motherland, the shadow of the promised land. Okay, the shadow of the nation state. It was actually, you know, I don't know how important or necessary is to say this. But yeah, it's one thing important that I've learned at the time where I was Me Too veteran was how important also that it is that we understand that what happened in Germany was happening all over. Okay, and it's very difficult to teach that in an Israeli university, but it's something that now I return to, and I discovered this is really the way it is. I tried to explain this to a family member. They were like, I cannot, no, this cannot be, no, this cannot this. And I was actually saying, you know, it's just like when a Me Too veteran comes and says, this happened to me, and you say, oh, I don't believe. They're like, no, it's not the same. It's like, it's the same. It's the exact same. It's what happens to our grandfather's family was happening to Japanese families in the United States. So, yeah. And then I confused my grandfather and my parent grandfather. It was really funny. But that's the nature of Aries. Sedna, I guess, was more about individuals betraying each other, kind of like the KGB stuff, but also nations betraying each other, and the entire idea of the nation state, people being sold into the nation state, which was kind of like a modern tribe when you think about this. But the algorithm is still, you know, it's still developing. The algorithm is still developing. We're still seeing all the pitfalls of the nation state and the pitfalls of a one world government. Okay, the aspiration that we will have this unity, Aries, and have this one logic by which we operate, and the card of discord, where discord is at the heart of um, discord is at the heart of actually having harmony, which is the polarity of Libra and Aries in general. So yeah, and whatever Marcy thing that we do now at this era of Aries in Aries gets the flavor of that Trojan horse. In this way, when we try to fight, it seems useless. When we try to protect the motherland, it ends up useless. When we try to penetrate the intelligence of this and that, it ends up weird. Edward Snowden, he can talk about the United States all he wants, but can he talk about the land that he's currently living with, that is Russia? No, that's his shelter. You cannot speak about what you cannot speak about. So we have to make the conclusions ourselves. Do we vilify a given country? Or do we understand that there is something else going on here? But it is very intricate. Yeah, it is chaotic. And then there's some certain natural, unnatural order that evolves within this chaos, that causes us to be more humane somehow, or maybe we think so. Very, very intricate. Okay, looking at Aries challenges, even that the scientists that had Aries within them were not quite accepting of their own theories in the beginning. So Albert Einstein is one notable example. And on a social level, if I talk about like the Me Too era, I specifically remember that before the Me Too broke out, I was writing, and I said, okay, enough of it. In how many years, in how much time am I ahead of my time? Because I'm sick of being this alone already in these convictions. And then a couple of months later, Me Too. And I was like, oh. What? So so that was the Uranus Aries, you know. But the recent understandings for me was that like everybody was doing it, but Hitler got slacked for it, and it's not an easy understanding. We lost literally the entire family of my grandfather from my mother's side that we know of in the Holocaust. For the other side, we don't even know. Okay, I was in a cemetery in Netherlands, and I was half channeling, and I was literally receiving that. It was a Christian cemetery and next to a church, and I was literally receiving from the grave something is so very true and logical. It's like, you don't know how many of us are Jewish. And I'm like, you know, this actually is true. This is actually very true. So it kind of gives us a certain, and one thing that I got again, and recently got it again, is the notion of Hakol Hevel Havelim. So it is all Gunish, it's all nothing. I don't even know how to translate. How do you translate Hevel Havelim? And in English, it's this is very interesting because Kohelet, I don't know how do you call him in English. Well, it's all nonsense, but what profit had man of all his labor which he taketh under the sun? This is literally what is the feel I get from Aries, and I don't understand, because I really like Kohelet. I really like this book, and now Kohelet is forum Kohelet, which is used for something weird scientifically. It kind of like takes everything and decompresses its meaning. It's kind of like Aries takes every known concept that we have and shows us this concept used in various particular ways that deconstruct it. But within this deconstruction, something is formed that is actually of essence and is intangible. Wow. Very interesting. So let's read about this Hevel Avelim thingy. Okay. That. Okay. And I want to see if it's. Hevel was also the brother of Cain that was murdered. It's the first murder. Okay, brother killed his own brother and said to God, "Hashomer achi anochi," like, am I the person who has to safeguard my brother? So there's also the notion of a bit like, yeah, something like this. I don't know what to say here. I will translate, find something here. Okay, this is all nonsense, but is there something more to it here? No, it is all nonsense. Is this about... and this was a book that I was reading. I think it was the only book that I was reading over and over again in the Bible. I found, even when I was atheist, I found meaning to it. Somehow it was my favorite book. So this is... so interesting. Kohelet. Okay, this is book. I don't understand, but there's just something to this energy. I cannot explain this. And for me, I have Moon Square Aries, so it is accompanying since childhood. And the square is a point of tension, so maybe if you have Moon sextile in Aries, then you could shed more light in a way that this energy is more accessible for you to understand. Or Moon trine in Aries. I should look for... maybe I can look for Moon trine Aries individuals in this... Astro Tools. I don't know, how will I look for it? Oh, Moon trine should be, if Aries is in Aries, so Moon trine in Aries should be Moon in Sagittarius or in Gemini. Moon in Leo or in Sagittarius is fire signs. Sextile would be Moon in Gemini and Moon in Aquarius. So those are people who have Moon sextile Aries. The Moon Leos, the Moon Sag, and the sextiles would be the Moon Gemini and the Moon Aquarius. So those people can facilitate maybe a more harmonious access to Aries, where they can see what she brings to the world with relative ease and not so crisis through crisis, because I experience her through crisis. And it's true that she's in Mars sign, but it doesn't have to be crisis. So I would need such people to facilitate this connection for me to understand it with less like crisis and more harmony and accessibility to get it, because such people would have more understanding of who Aries is and what she's doing in the world. So yeah, You see how astrology is helpful? Anyway, good night.